Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So as you know, we are reviewing the 15 steps that structurally define Nididhyasanam. We have talked about Nididhyasanam for the last 15-20 years, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, but we have not had a chance to look at until I found a very beautiful exposition of the steps required structurally that really help us to achieve a more effective meditation on the knowledge that we are studying. So we are doing those 15 steps. So we saw Yama, Niyama, then Tyaga, then Maunam. And the last week we saw it was Desha. And so today we will complete Desha and also go into Kala. So Kala is time. So Desha is a place. So it means all these steps with respect to how meditation should be approached. So last week we saw what is the best place for meditation. So this is the basic question, and today we will look into what is the best time for meditation. So both of these are actually very related. Desha and Kala are the two axes of the Shrishti, the creation. So the two axes are the vertical and the horizontal, the time and place. They all go together. And anyway, some thoughts come into my mind. I was just reading something about Desha and Kala, but I think I will do that some other time. That requires a lot of explanation. Anyway, so these are the steps of meditation. So there, we saw that our approach to the place for meditation could start with having some specific place. And it's okay, because to start things off, we need some basics of what should I do. But eventually, what we need to do is to graduate into timelessness and placelessness. No place. This is what we have to really eventually do in terms of meditation. So in the beginning, if you have some quiet place that you want to meditate on, which is good. This is absolutely, we are not denying that, absolutely necessary. But that is really just baby steps. The more advanced steps means that you are meditative even in a noisy place. And the approach necessary to make this effective, the method to make this meditation effective. What meditation? Being able to be quiet, mentally quiet, even in the midst of noise, requires the following approach. What it means is that instead of focusing on the noise, which is very natural to us, because if there is noisy, we don't like it if it's very noisy. We like to be quiet, because why should we be quiet? Because the nature of Atma is quietness, Maunam. Just prior to the Desha was Maunam. So the silence of the mind is very natural. And whatever is natural we want. Anything which is not what we are is not very pleasant to us. So quietness is good. But suppose you're moving in a place where there's a lot of talk going on and there's no silence, then the approach to meditation is, instead of focusing on the sounds outside, the noise outside, you turn your attention to yourself, who is the witness to all this. And what you will find if you do this, that the noise and the sound abates. It doesn't really doesn't create the same degree of response in your mind as it did before. And so this has to be done gradually and eventually completely. Because there is no substitute to your own Atma, which is there all the time. Just the Sakshi, which is there all the time. So there's a story, I'm not sure that I told this story last time, but let me just make sure I do that this time. So there was a Mahatma, and he had two students, two Shishyas. So they all said, please give us some Upadesha, some discourse about Vedanta, about the self. So they both approached him. So the Mahatma said, okay, can you bring me a couple of clay birds? You know, you can go to the shops and they have various things. There are various cups and so on, saucers, and then there probably are some toy birds that are made out of clay. So please bring them, one each from both of you. So they all said, okay, sir. We brought them. So what to do next? So he says, okay, I want you to do the following. When you go away from here, and when you find that there is nobody looking at what you're doing, break the toy into pieces and bring the pieces back to me. So do this. Just go and find a place when there is nobody else looking, no one looking. He didn't say nobody else, he says no one looking. and please bring it, and then break at that point break this clay toy bird and bring the pieces to me. So both the students went, and one of the students came back within 5 minutes. And he said, "Sir, I think I found there was a place, there was nobody looking, and I observed your commands and I broke it and I brought it back." So he says, "Okay, good, please sit down. I'll talk to you in a minute." So let me wait for the second one. So the second person never came back. I mean, never means that didn't come back for a whole day. Came back the next day, and the bird was still intact. It had not been broken. And he said, "Sir, I cannot find a place where nobody was looking. So I can't do it." And so the Guru asked him, how is it that no one is looking? He said, "Sir, during the day, the sun was looking at it. During the night, the moon and the stars were looking at it. And there were other insects and birds who were looking at it. Sometimes there are different birds, different insects who were looking at it. Ishvara was looking at it all the time. I was looking at it all the time. I was observing it. So there is no place where the Atma is not." So the Guru turned to the first Shishya and he said, you see the progression of understanding? We all have to start with the gross aspects of what this Sakshitvam is. That no one is looking means I don't find anybody else looking, so okay, I can now break it. But the Sukshma Vastu, the more subtle Vastu is when you think about it. Is there some place where the Sakshi is not? So this should be the approach towards meditation. That in the beginning, you are like student number one. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how everybody starts. Where your understanding of who is looking at what time and what place and so on is very gross. But then as you begin to understand the subtle presence of the Sakshi, then you find, my goodness, there is no place where the Sakshi is not. And this kind of a contemplation, this kind of a nididhyasanam, will allow you to be even in a noisy environment where you are able to do this. And this is the progression. So the nididhyasanam in terms of desha is this. So this is what the desha talks about. And here there is actually a verse from Ashtavakra Gita. We already gave a verse from Aparoksha Anubhuti, number 110. Remember last time? Adhavante cha madhye cha jano yasmin na vidyate yena idam satatam vyaptam sadeshaha vijana smritaha. So we saw that. But then there is another verse from Ashtavakra Gita, and it says, Aho jana samuhepi na dvaitam pashyato mama aranyamaiva samvrittam cha ratim karavaniyaham. Aho jana samuhepi. He says, wow, aho means, oh my God. Even in a crowd, jana samuhepi, I keep on saying samuhepi, no, it is samuhepi, samuha. Samuha means a crowded place. And jana samuhepi, so the crowded place of human beings. Jana samuhepi na dvaitam pashyato mama. I do not perceive duality. It has some additional points which is not part of this lesson. But anyway, because there he talks about how come there is no dvaitam. That's what I mean. There's some additional point. All I said was that if you simply concentrate, and not concentrate, but focus on the Atma, and the fact that I am the Sakshi, and I'm always there. Is there any time when you are not the Sakshi? No. No. What a great thing it is. But here he's talking about that the Sakshi is Advaya. So that's a separate point. So leave aside that point. So he says, Aho jana samuhepi na dvaitam pashyato mamaha aranyam iva samvrittam kva ratim karavaniyaham. So he says, just like, why should I be so wedded to find absence of, in Hindi they say, bheed bhadakka. That means crowded place. Why should I do that? Because I find I'm there at all over the place, at all times. So this is in a verse from Ashtavakra Gita. I don't remember the verse number. Aho jana samuhe pina dvaitam pashyato mama aranyam iva samvrittam kva ratim karavaniyaham. Kva ratim. Why should I be wedded to, why should I have a desire to go into aranyam? Aranyam means a forest area where there is nobody there. Like that guy who was asking Swami Dayananji that please send me to higher up on the Himalayas where there's no, there's no city sounds and anything. Can I just go there? So he says, I don't need to. So this is the fundamental of the desha, in the nididhyasana. Okay, then we can move on to kala. Kala means time. And I would say that the things that were pointed out by desha also can be extended to kala. So can be extended to. How? Because in the initial stages, in the first stage, it is appropriate to do karma according to what is specified. So we know very well that each karma requires the proper time. So in fact in the Vedic system, all the major samskaras there are 16 samskaras in one's life, including birth, and then namakaranam, the naming of the baby, etc., etc. And then upanayanam, and so this is giving the Gayatri mantra to the child. Then later on, vivaha. Vivaha means marriage, etc. So there are 16 samskaras. So the samskaras have to be done on particular times. So you have to look at the right combination of nakshatras. This is all astrologically done. And so it is, if you want to do this well, then you have to follow the vidhi. The vidhi means the very, what is specified in terms of time. It should all be done by that way. And so, for example, if you want to do puja, even if you're going to do puja at your home, then you should do it with proper cleanliness, having taken a bath, keeping everything all nice and clean, and you do it in the morning, because that's when the sattvic mind is most predominant, and it is your prayers are more sincere at that time. So all that is all based on time. And similarly, when you have special occasions like Ekadashi, Purnima, Janmashtami, Shivaratri, as we do, all those are done on specified times alone, not arbitrary. It's all based on the astrological moon, the phases of the moon based system in the Vedic knowledge. So, in fact, you can even say that the Shravanam also requires a certain discipline of time. For example, when we study the deeper subjects through Upanishads, those should be done in the morning. Upanishad and Brahma Sutra, etc. should be studied in the morning. Why? Because the sattvic state of the mind is more predominant in the morning. So as you know, we have this is an intermix of all three gunas the whole day, but the morning time is predominantly sattvic. And during the day it becomes rajasic. Rajasic means that it is based on action, desire, karma-based things, and so on. And so you require certain energy, certain commitment. All of that is the rajas. And then as the day progresses, you become tired, and so that just means that Ishvara wants you to now rest. Close your eyes and go to sleep. Tamas. Pardon me. So those are the natural phases of the gunas, right? So now there is a certain time for Shravanam too. And in the beginning there is a time for Nididhyasanam also. You should really do meditation in the morning along with the Vedantic study, as we all do in our ashrams also. As you know, the meditation is done very early in the morning, and along with the study of the main text. Later on you can take secondary texts, so on and so forth. Sometimes even Bhagavad Gita can be studied in the evening, because it has to do with the application of the knowledge, or even the restatement in the form of smriti, even the restatement of the principles are also done in Bhagavad Gita, but that can be done in the evening. So when we were at the ashram, we would study the Upanishads in the morning and Bhagavad Gita or some other Prakarana Grantha in the afternoon or in the evening. So there is a time involved for doing this. And same thing on meditation. But here comes the advanced stages of doing Nididhyasana. And so there are some verses in the Paroksha Anubhuti which I won't have time to really go through, and not necessary to go through, but I can just convey what they're saying. In terms of time, exactly the same situation as the place, desha. Slowly you should graduate towards doing meditation at any time, all the time. There is no specified time for doing that. This is where the experienced students should desire to go to. So in fact, in the Vedantic way of looking at it, this is what is called Sahaja Samadhi. Sahaja Samadhi means natural, or Sahaja can also means easy. Yeah, easy, both of them apply. The words easy and natural apply to Sahaja Samadhi. And we saw in the Drigdrishya Viveka, Yatra Yatra Mano Yati Tatra Tatra Samadhayaha. So this is the advanced stage of meditation. Wherever your mind is, there is no reason why the mind appropriately, so for example, if you're talking to someone is asking you a question, then the mind should be engaged in giving an answer to the question of someone. If somebody comes in and he says, may I come in? And you say, sorry, I'm doing meditation, I cannot answer. That's not proper. How can you can't do that, and we won't do that. So your engagement with the outside world as necessary should go on. But whenever you have a free time when no one is really bothering you, nobody's asking you, nobody is requiring you to do something, your mind should be turned towards the Atma, the Sakshi. And it should happen naturally. In the beginning, you're right. You may have to, like learning to ride the bike, you have to do some things consciously. You may have to be held. But if you keep on doing this, you find that your tendency to do meditation becomes natural at all times, not just specified time. This is where we have to graduate to. So this is a very beautiful exposition of meditation structure, of Nididhyasanam structure. And I think I really gained a lot by studying it and understanding it and now conveying it to you. And so that is now, we have gone into 6 steps out of the 15, and we will go to the next step. I think this is asanam next time. Okay, so with that phase of the class is now over. And let's now go into Bhagavad Gita. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshiniim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayiniim Ambatvāmanusandadhāmi Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshiniim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tatgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na Vidusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. So let us chant 5 verses, starting with verse number 14 of the second chapter. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama payino nityaha tam stitikshasva bharata yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purushashabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritattvaya kalpate nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha ubhayorapi drishtantaha tvanayostattvadarshibhihi avinashitu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati antavanta ime dehaha nityasyokta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmat yudhyasva bharata. Number 18. Okay. So let's finish some remaining parts of verse number 17 that we had started doing last week. So verse number 17 had said, may you know that your nature, not even your nature, you, when you say you and I and all these other people, is avinashi. They do not go anywhere. They don't decay. They don't disappear. You should know this. And so this is what he's saying, avinashitu tadvidhi. Vidhi means you should know this. You're just ashochan anvashochastvam. You're just crying for nothing. You're weeping for something which is not true. This is a foolish weeping. If there is something deserves weeping, then weep. That's okay. So, for example, even in the case of for someone who in the family may die, so there should be seen as two causes for weeping. And we all cry and weep when there is a loss of life close to us. So one should see that there are two reasons for crying and weeping and being sorrowful. One is that your life involved this person in one form or the other. You interacted with the person, you were perhaps dependent on the person, you enjoyed their company, you required them. Those are now gone. So there is a void in your life and a sense of loss, a sense of bereavement as a result of this action is justified. No question. We're not saying don't cry. Why are you being... That's not what Krishna was telling Arjuna. Ashocyan anvashochastvam. He says, don't go ahead and cry, that's okay. But then there is another reason for crying. And that is that the person is dead, gone. That reason for crying is not true. The visibility of the person may be gone, but the person is not gone. Because the person is the Atma, and there is only one Atma, which is your Atma, which is their Atma, all the one Atma. It cannot go anywhere. You should see this. This is what he's saying. Avinashita tadviddhi yena sarvamidam tatam. See the conscious entity which is very much there, all in the whole creation, at all places, at all time. No change in it. And of course then in the second line it says, Vinasham avyayasya asya na kaschit kartum arhati. He says, please see that this vinasha, the disappearance, the killing, the death of this person, it is not possible, my dear, not possible. Vinasham avyayasya asya na kaschit kartum arhasi. Nobody can do it. So this is where we were in the last class, remember? And so now let's pick up the pieces from there, which is this: how come no one can kill? How can you say that? Because I am killing in my war. You're not killing the Atma. Okay? Because we have already explained the Atma, sarvamitam tatam. It is something which is not visible to you. It is not something which is in front of you. You cannot, unless there is something, you can only strike someone who is in front of you. You say Atma is not in front of you. And so this is taken up more systematically. He says, so this is taken up in the commentary of Swami Shankarananda, which is the second paragraph of the verse number 17 on page 57. So we went through some portions of the second paragraph already, but the one that we want to focus in on now is the analysis of how come I cannot kill. Give me the justification for that. So this is where it starts. So let me start by talking about it in Sanskritam, and then I will explain. Atra means asmin vishaye, in this subject matter, atmanaha nasham vadan vadi, means that vadi means the one who espouses, one who takes the stand that there is nasham for the Atma. Nasham for the Atma means that this is what I believe in, this is what I think, this is what my conclusion is that. Where he says, Atra Atmanaha Nasham Vadan Vadi. Vadan Vadi means the one who is saying this, who believes in it and who is saying it, Prashtavyaha. Prashtavyaha means, so this is the Tavya Pratyaya. Tavya Pratyaya means it should be. So the sense of the Tavya Pratyaya is it should be. Like for example, you say Kartavyaha. Kartavyaha means that I should do this. You know, like for example, supposing you want to, you collect your old clothes and once in a while you are supposed to launder it, put it into the washing machine. So this is should be done. So this is what is called Kartavyaha. Here it says Prashtavyaha. Prashtavyaha means he should be asked. It is proper to ask this person. Let us ask this person who says that Atma is Nasham. Kim Atmanaha Nashaha Swataha va? So now he says, okay, let's look at all possibilities of destroying the Atma. Here are the possibilities. You just exhaustively look at every possible way. So he says, let me give it to you. You may not have thought about it, but we have, and so let me communicate possible ways of destroying someone. So he says, Kim Atmanaha Nashaha Swataha, is the destruction of the Atma by itself? Then this is number one. Let's keep on doing that. Number one, Swataha. Parataha va. Not by itself, by somebody else. Number two, Kim Ashraya Nashaha va. Number three, is it because what it was depending on is removed? You see, if you are sitting on, let's say you are sitting on the roof of a house, nicely, not roof means this, let's say any second or third floor or whatever, and the house gets destroyed in an earthquake. Now, normally you are not really, the earthquake is not destroying you, but it destroyed the ashraya on which you were depending on, which is the floor. So this is the third kind. So it is not directly paratahava, but kim ashraya nashava. Okay, number three. Number four, kim sambandhi nashatva. Means that you have a connection to something and that connection gets broken. And therefore that causes your nasha. Nasha means destruction. So this is number 4. Then next one is uta karana nashatva. That something was causing you to be alive, and when that cause is gone, then naturally you are the effect of the cause, you will also be gone. That's number 5, I think. Yeah. And the last one is atha karya nashatva. So this is where, for those of you that are learning Sanskrit, really having I think even supposing you don't have a thorough knowledge of the vocabulary and this, that or the other, all those will come over time. But the Sandhi rules are very important. So I think if you're attending Kumudji's classes, then really I urge all of you to really be very familiar with the Sandhi rules. Like for example here, atha karya nasha dveti. See, this is the thing. So you got to really do the vicheda, Sandhi vicheda. It says atha karya nasha dveti. It looks very strange, karya nasha dveti. So what it is karya nashat va iti. And so this kind of a vicheda we should really get very familiar with after a while. That becomes, the whole thing starts to really make a lot of sense. Anyway, so those are the 6 causes. Okay. Now he starts to answer those 6 causes of nasha, why they do not apply to the Atma. So he starts with it, na adyaha. Adyaha means not the first one. So adyaha means not adi yasya. Adi means the beginning. You know, the beginning is adi. Anadi means beginningless. So adi means the beginning. So the beginning of this list is the first one. What was the first one? Swataha va. Va means or. Is it this or this or this or this or like this? So is va. Na adyaha. Then comes the logic. And the logic is always in the 5th case. So the 5th case is whenever there is a logic given, it is always given in the 5th case. Niravayavatvat. So niravayavatvat means it cannot destroy itself because it has no avayava, no parts. Like for instance, a person can destroy, a person with a body can destroy himself. You know, like for example, you can commit suicide by holding a gun in your right hand and aiming it towards your heart and pulling the trigger. So you can destroy a body because it has avayavas, it has parts. The Atma doesn't have any parts. And so it cannot destroy itself. Okay, let's go on. Yatha, in fact he explains it, Yatha savayavasya swa avayava apachayat nashaha. So this is why I described the whole thing, as somebody can kill yourself, or you can hit yourself with a hammer and injure yourself. Nashaha tatha Niravayavasya atmanah swata nasha anupapatte. He says, swataha nasha anupapatte means it is not, anupapatti means reasonableness. Anupapatti means logically possible, reasonableness. Anupapatte, anupatti. Ananupapatti means it is not logical. This cannot be done. Obviously, if you don't have parts, then one part cannot destroy the other part. So this is the swataha, all in the first one. Now comes the second one, na dvitiyaha. Tasya api atmatvena swaprati swasya kartra karmatva ayogat tatopi nasha asambhavat. Okay, so this is more difficult. He says that even the second one is not possible. Let me look at the exact. So the second one is not possible because anyone else is also the Atma. Anyone else, there's only one Atma. Right, this is what we have to see. So when you say I, and I say I, it is the same I. When you say I, you mistakenly take your personality of body-mind complex to be I. That's a different matter. You make a mistake about your I, as I make a mistake about my I, but we are the same I. So therefore, the same I cannot kill itself. What you consider to be separate, it is not there. It's kind of like, supposing there's two adjoining rooms. And so there is a room number 1 and a room number 2. And they have a fight. And the room number 1 says, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to take your space away from you. You are enjoying and so on, and I don't like that. I'm going to take your and so the roomness is of course the form, the substance of the roomness is the space. So the first room number 1 can say, I'm going to take your space away. If you take space away, you are taking your own space away. And you cannot do that. So in fact, there is a technical reason for it. He says, Kartra karma, where does it say that? Yeah. So he says, Na dvitiyaha tasya api atmatvena swataprati swasya kartra karmatva ayogat. So, same person being a doer and the same person and also karma, the space cannot say, I'm going to remove space. You can't do that. You are what you are. So even the second one does not make any sense. You cannot do that. Okay, so the second one is gone. Then, na tritiyaha. Tritiya means the third one, which is Kim ashraya nashatva. That you will, your ashraya means that the one that was supporting you will go away. And he says, the Atma is not being supported by anyone. It is not supported. Atma is Swatasiddha. Swatasiddha means that it remains by itself. There is no ashraya for the Atma. Atma itself is the ashraya for everybody else. How is the Atma ashraya for everybody else? This is what we have to do contemplation on. You really look at it, you find that the whole world, the whole experience, the whole life is based on the functioning of the Atma. Nothing is possible without consciousness. Nothing. This awareness. See, there is a problem in this world. This problem in the way we define these words. So consciousness seems like it's a property. This is the problem with translations. So consciousness means that the tendency to be conscious. This is how it means. Awareness is the same way. And all this is conveyed through words which are lacking. A very beautiful section I read recently, and somehow we need to find some time to really, I'm caught up in explaining a particular text and so on. It goes on. And I guess probably the best thing is that on the Tuesday night class, which we have done in the past, you just take small topics of Vedanta. And I violated my own principle, because now I am teaching you the Panchadashi, which is good because we are doing it, but the issue is that it takes a long time to finish the commitment. But in the meantime, there are smaller sections that I think we can take that would be good to take. So anyway, I'm just thinking out aloud and how we can communicate some very effective smaller sections that remove our doubts from time to time. So in this topic about the Atma not requiring any ashraya, and in fact the Atma is the ashraya for everybody else. So there, when you say consciousness, it looks like it is a property of somebody else. In fact, the real nature of Atma is knowledge, jnanam. Not knowledge of any one particular thing, but just knowledge. So on that matter, I'm just digressing for a minute. So what we have to see is that the fundamental building block of the whole universe, of the whole experience, our life itself, is Chit Swarupaha. Chit Swarupaha. Pure consciousness, again the word consciousness, but it's in Sanskritam it will be Jnanam. Chit Swarupaha. And what happens is, it's interesting, the Chit Swarupaha alone becomes Chittaha. Chit becomes Chitta. There is another Ta that is added. The Chitta is a thought. A thought means that it is a transformation of Chit in the form of a form. So like for example, the water could be taken to be the Chit Swarupaha. And a wave is a Chittaha, means of a thought. So now all of our relationships, all of our experiences are in the form of thoughts and words. You cannot cry, you cannot laugh, you cannot have relationships without having thoughts. And thoughts are Chittaha. And what are Chittaha? They are Chit Swarupaha. And the Chit Swarupaha is only one Chit Swarupaha, which is Jnanam. Satyam Jnanam Anantam, which is Brahman. Only one Chit Swarupaha. And that is the Ashraya. Ashraya means that is the basis on which all Chittahas are born. Water is the very basis where all the waves are born. Space is the very basis on which specific room spaces are born. But is there any basis for Chit Swarupaha? No. Because Jnanam is Swatasiddhaha, by itself. It doesn't depend on anything. In fact, it says, and now I can go back to the commentary, he says, this is on the fourth line of the verse of the commentary by Swami Shankarananda, on page 58, he says, Nat Tritiyaha, not the third one. What was the third one? Kim Ashrayanashatva. Then he gives a reference. Kasmin Bhagavaha Pratisthitaha Iti. So I forget the name of the Upanishad from which this is taken, but the question by the student is, He Bhagavaha, He Paramat, He Guru, Kasmin Pratisthitaha. So in the analysis of Brahman, Atma, etc., so the student asks, where does it rest? What is the Pratisthita? What is the Ashraya? Pratisthita and Ashraya are the one and the same. What is the Ashraya for it? The answer is Sway Mahimni. Swe Mahimni. It is independent of anything else, and it stays in its own glory. What a beautiful explanation. And we should relate to it. We should relate to it. This is in the Drikdrishya Viveka. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik tadrishyam driktu manasam drishyadhi vrittaya sakshi drigeva natu drishyate. Very first verse. So you should see this this progression. Rupam drishyam drige Lupam drishyam lochanam drik. That all the forms that you see depend upon the eye. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik tadrishyam driktu manasam. And the eye is dependent on the mind, on the thoughts, isn't it? Why? Because you can see this. Sometimes your eyes can see people, but your mind was elsewhere and you didn't see the person. Somebody asks you, did you see that person walk by? He says, no, I didn't. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik tad drishyam lochanam drishyam driktu manasam. So the eyes depend upon the mind. Then the next one is Tadrishyam driktu manasam drishyaha dhivrittaya sakshi. And what does the mind depend on? By the proof of the sakshi. You can say, yes, my mind, I'm thinking of this. Has to. If you cannot have a sakshi, you cannot say my thoughts, my mind, I want to do this. I don't like it. All of these are endorsed by the sakshi. Who endorses the sakshi? Drigeva natu drishyate. He says, no one needs to endorse the sakshi. Why not? Because swe mahimni pratitishthitaha. It is conscious by itself. It does not have any cause for it. Oh my goodness! This is what this whole teaching is about. That my Atma, that me. And you can't say my Atma. You can say my Atma, that from respect of this body-mind complex, the Atma of, but me, I, does not have any ashraya, doesn't need any ashraya. Swe mahimni tishtati. You're just an absolute amazing. So that's the third one. Kim ashraya nashatva, he says, na tritiyaha kasmin bhagavaha pratisthitaha iti swe mahimni iti means like this, atmanaha swa atirikta ashraya abhava shravanat. He says, because it is in Shravana, means Shruti says that other than itself there is no other ashraya. This is what the Shruti says, completely, all over the place. Swa atirikta ashraya abhava shravanad. Ashraya nasha nimittaka nasha anupapatte. This being the case, therefore, you can take out the possibility that because the ashraya is gone, therefore atmana will also be gone. Atma will also be gone. Not possible because it doesn't have an ashraya. So that question doesn't apply. Let's go to the fourth one. Kim sambandhi nashatva. So he says, na api chaturthaha. So he says, Atmanah niravayavattvena dravya guna kriyadibihi samyogadi sambandhasya nirupayitum ashakyatvat tad vishlesha prayukta nasha asambhutehe. This is the Sanskrit. So he says, I'm sorry to say that, not sorry, I'm sorry to disappoint you by saying that this connection also is not possible. The connection is also not possible because it is niravayavatvam. It has no parts to it. It has no parts, then how can it have a connection? You need a part. You need this line, this hand, and you have this hand, some fingers. Then you can say, I am connected. Space cannot be connected to anything. Atma is like space. It is not connected. It is not possible for it to connect. It cannot be connected through any dravya, anything. Then guna, it cannot be connected to any quality. Kriyadi, so some motion maybe. No, nothing is not possible. I'm sorry. Let's look at the whole thing. Nothing is, because that's how the connection is. You know, you can say that it is dravya, the connection with anything. Like for example, you say I'm connected to my children because they were born from me, and so they have connected to you. Or guna, you're connected to a red rose, so the rose is connected to the redness, which is a guna. Or kriyadihi bhi. Kriya means that you're the driver. And so the car and the driver are connected in some way. Kriyadibihi samyoga, the sambandha nirupayittum ashakyatvat. You cannot specify any of that is possible. So therefore, tad vishlesha prayukta nasha asambhutehe. Therefore, the connection not being possible, its destruction of that connection is also not logical. It cannot be done. Here, Swami, if I can just digress for a second, just to give you, this is what I was saying, that sometimes we can just talk about some specific things. So, Swami Akhandananda ji was talking about this. He says, take a vishaya, take anything, like say for example, say this phone. Pixel 6 is what this is. Pixel 6 phone. This object, this Vishaya, this object, also specifies a place, because it is here, not anywhere else. So it has some connection to the place. It also has a connection to Kala. So it is there at this time of, at one time it was not there, another time it will not be there, but at this time it is there. So it has a connection to time. See, just look at the connection. We are talking on that subject. That's what triggered these thoughts to me. So this object is connected to place, it is connected to time, and it is connected to Vastu, because it is a phone, it is not a book. So it has some uniqueness to it that defines date-wise, time-wise, and Vastu-wise. Right? So this is what is called Parichinnatvam. This is another word that is used. Parichinna means limited. So it has an ashraya, it has a dependency which is called Parichinna. How is it Parichinna? It is based on a particular place. In fact, at this place there cannot be anything else, only it is there. So it has Parichinnatvam with respect to, it is, if I can do this in Sanskritam, Deshataha Parichinnam, Kalataha Parichinnam, and Vastutaha Parichinnam. These are the three different kinds of Parichinnatvam that all Vishayas enjoy. Now, what about the Jnanam? If you don't mind, I am going to start using the word Jnanam as opposed to consciousness, if you're okay with it, because the word consciousness, in my view, gives a completely wrong impression of what Atma is. Atma is Jnanam. So now let's look at Atma, the Jnanam. Is the Atma Parichinna by Desha? No. Why? Because it is the ashraya for this phone. It's the ashraya for this phone, because if the chitta, the phone thought is not there, there is no phone, as far as I am concerned. So we saw this, that if my eyes are closed, as far as I am concerned, there's no phone for me. That's what happens when you sometimes, put it underneath a piece of paper and you cannot find it. Or if my mind is someplace else, that happens all the time. You have your phone in your pocket and you don't know it. So the mind also depends on the Jnanam. The eyes also depend upon the Jnanam. Same thing as we saw, Lochanam, Drik, etc. So now going back to the logic, is the Atma dependent on place? No, because the place depends upon the Atma. You cannot define a place. You cannot define a place unless you have jnanam. Does it depend upon time? Does the Atma depend on time? No. This one depends on time, but the Atma doesn't depend on time, because is there any time where jnanam is not there? Is there any vastu where jnanam is not there? Jnanam is there in all places, at all times, in all vastus. So there is no ashraya for it, no sambandha for it. It is like space. You need everything to have space, isn't it? Whether it is pollution, non-pollution, smallness, bigness, they are all properties of the space, but it's not connected to the space. Similarly, everything has, the basis is jnanam. I am, I know. And it is not dependent on time. Never born. Anyway, I'm just going on in that direction, but just to give you that idea about the sambandha, it is not there. So the fourth one is also not there. Okay, let's go to the next one. Na apicha panchamaha. Panchamaha means uta karananashatva. Why is it not? So he says that it does not have any cause. Like, for example, supposing you have a golden ornament. So there the gold is the cause and the ornament is the effect. And if the gold is removed, then the ornament cannot stay by itself. It doesn't have its own existence. So therefore the Atma could have a cause. It must be very similar to is the ashraya. That may have some kind of a cause. You know, sometimes it is different from an ashraya, because I'm just thinking that you can ashraya, of course, means that it is there presently. But you know, supposing there is a cause which is no longer there. It happened in the past, but the effect is being felt now. That can happen. So the cause and effect can be different from each other. Like, for example, supposing you had supposing a person had a fight with someone, and the person says, I will get you later. And so he collects some bad people and some strong people, and they come and beat you up. That beating up is the effect of a cause that happened some time ago. So similarly, does the Atma have a cause? So he says, now he gives the quotation from the Shruti, Nacha asya kaschid janita iti. He says, nothing is the cause of its beginning. Iti brahmanaha karana abhava shravanat. He says that the karana has no bhava for karana. This Shruti all says it, that the Atma does not have doesn't need a cause, because it is Svasiddha. tasmin tat nimittaka nasha ayogat. Therefore, the nasha because of the karana being gone is not there. Now only one is left, and now that may be complete. I'm happy that we'll be able to finish it. Then the left is atha karyanashatva. Karyanashat means that all the parts, all the effects of it are gone, and therefore it is not there. Like for example, you can say that if all the rooms get destroyed, room space is a karya, isn't it? It's an effect of building a house, is the effect of modifying the space. So supposing in an earthquake, like it happens in, you see these pictures of the various storms that take place, and the whole town gets flattened. There's no rooms left there anymore. So when the rooms are left, the rooms are gone, all the buildings are gone, then there is no town left. You see? So that's, I'm just giving you one example. It can be other examples. That if you have a functioning town and the effect of building the rooms are gone, then the town is also gone. There's no functioning, there's no grocery store, everything can be just completely destroyed. So maybe that can happen to the Atma, because the Atma may have a karya. So whole Jagat can disappear and therefore the Atma also disappears. Yeah, just look at it this way. All the experiences, all the Jagat itself just goes away and therefore the Atma also goes away. No. Why not? Because he says, na evacha shashtaha, not the sixth one. Na tasya karyam karanam na vidyate iti karya abhava shravanat karya nasha nimittika nasha asambhavat na. So he says even that is not possible because it doesn't have any karya. And so if there is a karya, that is so this is interesting. We'll take this up some other time. Like one can say that a vision of a snake on a rope is a karya. Is the effect of, how can it be a karya? Possibly because you could not have seen a snake unless the rope was there. If the rope is not there, then the effect of the rope is also not there. So you can say that it is therefore rope has a karya, which is a snake. So in that case, if the karya disappears, the rope is not affected. So this is exactly what happens. You can say that the whole world can disappear, but that whole world is a result of adhyasika sambandha. It is based on some brahma, that it has its own reality. In fact, it is based on the Atma. So let it go. Doesn't make any difference. The Atma is unaffected by it. So therefore, the sixth one is also not there. So now we can summarize it. He says, na evacha shashtaha na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate iti karya abhava shravanat karya nasha nimittika nasha asambhavat. Therefore, kena api prakarena idam sat brahma vyeti iti avyayam tasya etasya avyayasya nitya siddha sattakasya brahmanah vinasham abhavam kartum vaktum cha kopina vadi visheshaha na arhati tathatve swasya evana ahamiti asmiti bhava prasangaha bahushruti virodha pratyakshadi virodhacha prasajyate iti bhava. So he says that in the end, therefore, any kind of a question by somebody that how you can say that it is not possible to destroy it, we have already proven na kaschit kartum arhati. No possibility anybody can logically give for this to become vinasha. So with that, verse number 17 is complete, and we will now go over to verse number 18 in the next class. Om asato ma satkamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnamevavashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Nice to see you all. Wonderful. So Poonam, your question, is it correct to say that consciousness is everywhere? It needs a mind to experience. This experience could be altered with the play of gunas. So, it is correct to say that consciousness is everywhere, and it needs a mind to experience. It needs a mind to clearly see that it is everywhere. So the very manifestation of the Atma, of Paramatma, in the form of you and I, And we also have always been there. Always been there. So it's not something we came about. We've always been there. So if we've always been there, we've always had a mind. Every expression of consciousness presents itself in the Sukshma Sharira, which is the subtle body, which is the mind. So the mind is always there. Okay? So now if the mind is always there, and jnanam is always there, then does it need your mind to experience it? That is the question. So I will alter your question to do so, having explained both the aspects of it. So the fact of the matter is that the mind has always been there, but the mind has been confused as to what is jnanam, what is the conscious entity, what is Paramatma, what is Jivatma. So it takes the sthula sharira and itself the sukshma sharira as the reality. It doesn't see the Atma as the reality. Doesn't see the consciousness, as you say, is the reality. So it sees something all the time. The mind is always, because the very presence of the mind means that it sees something. Here Swami Akhandanandji had made a very beautiful, I have not seen this kind of a particular analysis. And it's I think it is such a profound analysis that I think it takes more time, and I propose to take that up in some other class. But let me just give you a very short, which I'm already doing, which is that the mind is always there, but if it doesn't know the truth, it has a false impression of what my truth is. And the false impression is that I'm just a limited person and the world is outside of me. This is the falsity of it. And all that experiences that you talk about is the knowledge that this is not what it is all about. I am the whole, and this is just part of me. So that experience requires an educated mind. But the mind is always there, as the consciousness is always there. Anyway, good question, and I hope that some of it is clear. Good, Surendra and Maithili. Excellent. Yeah, so when I teach a class, I'm always worried about the speed. Am I going too slow? Am I going too fast? Am I reaching you? So for example, we are this one verse, we have taken multiple classes. But I think this is the advantage of doing an analysis, is that it is it has some very fine structure to the analysis in terms of analyzing, in the non-destructibility to it. And if you haven't gone through that before, it'll be good to go through that. So I'm happy you're enjoying it, and it's good. So with that, all right, thank you all. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Hari Om.